Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to bring you a review of My Old Ass, written and directed by Megan Park, starring Maisy, Stella, Percy Hines-White, Maddie Ziegler, Carice Brooks, and Aubrey Plaza. And this follows a girl named Elliot who's just about to go off to college for the first time and is spending the last days of her summer with her best friends when they decide to trip on mushrooms. And once that occurs, Elliot starts to see the older version of herself, of course played by Aubrey Plaza in this, and they start communicating via text. It's really strange, the mechanics of this movie, we'll get into that, but this movie was one I've heard a lot about coming out of Sundance, and ever since it came out in theaters, I've been hearing nothing but great things for the most part. And so this was one I definitely knew I had to go out of my way and see. And I'll be honest, I am so glad that I did, because this movie, despite the title being so crass and almost kind of like a joke within itself, because it is a joke in the movie where the title of the film comes from, because the younger Elliot, played by Maisy Stella, wants to touch the older Elliot's ass. So that's how it kind of comes to be in the narrative, and kind of becomes the contact name for the older Elliot in her phone. And so this movie was just so beautiful, surprisingly so, because I did not expect how much I was going to be moved by this rom-com here, especially because the conceit of this film, it does sound kind of ridiculous, but the way they go about it is just met with such a maturation and self-reflexiveness and just a lot of depth and poignancy that I really, I guess, had an idea was going to be there, but wasn't fully anticipating to the level that's on display. Especially Maisy Stella and Aubrey Plaza, man. I tell you, Maisy Stella, this is her feature film debut, and she is such a natural. This is really her movie, and she carries it on her shoulders so well, and really brings such a authenticity to the character of Elliot, as the conversations do between them, especially because it really does feel like an extension of the older version of this character, especially how they respond to things, the things that have happened to them, and the anecdotes around that are very playful and funny in a lot of ways. So I really do love the conversations, but then again, the things that really stood out to me about these conversations were the beautiful reflections on the passage of time and how we perceive it at different, points in our life. And I think that really was the most beautiful thing, because you could see the older Elliot really trying to impart some sort of wisdom onto the younger Elliot, whether she takes that or not. The narrative really plays into that so cleverly in all the right emotional ways. And I really do think that there's a lot of stuff that she was telling her that I could certainly relate to, especially the observation this movie makes about how we really stop caring what people think about us as we get older is truly spot on. I mean, I think I've kind of hit that moment in my life where I don't really care how people perceive me, to be honest. And so I really do think that that was always something I kind of wanted to go back and tell myself, that, really don't be too harsh on yourself, because if you aren't too harsh on yourself, no one else really is going to be either. And it's such a simple thing that you have to teach yourself as you go throughout your life, but such a valuable piece of information. And not only that, I just really think that as someone who's kind of wanting to finally move away from home and kind of start a new life, it really does ring true in so many different ways. These kind of moments that you have to savor, because you never really know whether it's going to be the last time you do something, and it kind of sneaks up on you unannounced. And just the passage of time and how that certainly shapes your experiences and how you reflect on them. It's really, really, really beautiful in that regard. And as much as I love that this film kind of touches on, oh, what would you tell your younger self and impart that knowledge, I also love how this movie looks at how perhaps there's things that we're more perceptive about when we're younger that maybe we're less afraid of than we are as we grow older, and how life kind of changes our worldview a little bit in a way that our younger selves would not have. And that really stood out to me more than anything, because it felt like such a three-dimensional portrait of life, and how we definitely have certain inclinations that perhaps are just as valuable as the knowledge that we gain as we get older. And I also have to give a shout out to everyone in the cast, especially Percy Hines White, who I understand is under a bit of hot water at the moment. But the chemistry that he has with Maisy Stella is unbelievably sweet and charming, and I really think that they take his character in directions that I really was not expecting. And I think it is a perfect combination, the two of them on screen. And yet again, all these interactions that these characters have feel so genuine and so heartfelt. And I think that's what really stood out, especially the interactions with her family too, and how that kind of evolves in a very interesting and surprising way. Yet again, something I really, really appreciated in the way this film talks about families and kind of how our interactions change with them as we grow older, and how we start to appreciate more things perhaps. And I especially loved Maria Dizia as her mother in this film, and they get a really beautiful scene together that, my goodness, yet again, I could really relate to in so many ways. Like, that's really what I'm going to keep saying about this movie, because it just touches on so much that I have been thinking about personally at this stage in my life. Because honestly, I think anybody above 24 at least is really going to relate to this movie in many different ways. And of course I have to talk about Aubrey Plaza in this movie as the older version of Elliot. Coming off of Megalopolis, this was literally the next movie I saw in theaters, and it couldn't have been, one, a different film, and two, it could have been a different performance, but it's so much better than that. And I think this is one of the best roles of her entire career, and she really brings, of course, a great sense of humor, because you know she's always going to bring that, but the emotional sensitivity and vulnerability and depth that she imbues in this character is really the reason I think it works so well whenever she's on screen. And I think she, obviously the standout outside of Maisy Stella, as you would expect, but they definitely really work so well together, and the chemistry they have really pops off the screen. You could say that about everybody in this movie. I really liked Carice Brooks as her friend, and their interactions are really beautiful. And I think this film also has a lot to say about identity and how that evolves over time, and how that's okay to kind of be discovering yourself as you basically grow into yourself. And I really did love the way the film tackled those themes. I think my big thing was, I think, the main conceit of the movie, because originally she sees her after she's tripping on mushrooms, and I really don't think the movie gives a clear understanding to the audience about when she can show up and when she can't, because it's very loosey-goosey in that regard. And I think it definitely bothers me because the rules of the world don't really make sense, and that's my biggest issue with the film. I also think that some of the humor doesn't hit 100% of the time, but a lot of it does, because it does feel so authentic. And I think a lot of the side characters really could have used some more, fleshing out. But especially with their family, they all get a moment to shine, and I really did appreciate that the film at least allotted some time to develop some of those smaller characters and subplots. And when it comes to the main conceit of the film, I really don't think the focus was on it being particularly logistical, because it's more of what this film is trying to tackle emotionally that matters. And I think it just soars into the stratosphere in that regard, This is one of the most touching, funny, poignant movies of the entire year, and certainly an indie that you're going to want to check out, perhaps in theaters, but definitely when it hits home video, of course, streaming, all that. And I really did love My Old Ass. I can't wait to see what Megan Park does next. I didn't get to see the Fallout, but I might have to check that out after seeing this. And yeah, definitely a voice I want to hear from in the years to come. And I'm going to give My Old Ass an 8.5 out of 10. I mean, this year, it keeps popping off, guys. And this was yet again another gem from 2024 that I think a lot of people are going to have some emotional resonance with. And it's definitely one that I think a lot of you will enjoy. But let me know if you've seen My Old Ass. Not My Old... You know what I mean. Tell me down in the comments below what you thought of the film. And of course, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews like this one. The next one up on the chopping block is Joker Folie à Deux. Of course, directed by Todd Phillips, the hotly anticipated sequel to 2019's Joker starring Joaquin Phoenix. And of course, this time around, Lady Gaga. Definitely have a lot to say about that one. And so much more in the weeks to come. I'm still trying to catch up on everything, but rest assured we're finally going to get to it all very soon. So please stay on the lookout for that and so much more. I will talk to you guys very soon.